How's it going, everybody? This is S3Tide coming at you with a Week 6 of college football recap video. I got to watch a lot of college football this week, so I have a lot to say. So let's get started. Starting in the Thursday game, we had number 9 Oregon and Cal playing at Autzen Stadium, probably the loudest stadium in college football. Cal kept it close the first half. We're actually winning going into the halftime, 15-14, I believe it was. And it could have been a lot more, but their quarterback, Zach Maynard, he was probably the most inaccurate I've ever watched a quarterback be on a Thursday night. He was the guy that could have gone to Alabama with Keenan Allen. They were a package deal, and they ended up going to Cal because Nick Saban didn't want to give up a scholarship to Zach Maynard. But actually, I'm glad he didn't, because it would have been a wasted scholarship because, he's starting for Cal, but he's not doing too much. He's really inconsistent. He can make good throws. He has great technique, but he doesn't use that great technique to his best ability, as which is really inaccurate and can make the throws, but just half the time doesn't. But I went to sleep at halftime. This is all I got to say. I went to sleep at halftime, and Oregon was losing 15-14. And I woke up and they won 43-15, and I was like, "What?" So apparently, me going to sleep was good luck for Oregon. But I did hear that Michael James got hurt in the fourth quarter, but I don't think it's going to be too serious. I'm pretty sure he's going to play next week. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he'll be able to play next week, so that's not too big. But if he was not able to play next week, Chip Kelly would be really mad that he was playing. He would regret that he was playing Michael James in the fourth quarter of a blowout game. Moving on to the Saturday games, we have the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma and Texas. This game was a blowout from the beginning. Oklahoma had 3 defensive touchdowns. Quarterbacks for Texas, Case McCoy and David Ash had terrible games. They both threw multiple interceptions. Neither could get a game going. Actually, I believe Case McCoy had a little bit more of a better game than David Ash did. David Ash has made really stupid mistakes, like his 3-step drop going at an angle, hitting his running back, getting sacked for 13-plus yards. Just stupid mistakes by freshmen. I think Case McCoy is a little bit better of a starter, but they both played. Oklahoma won 55-17. Oklahoma passed all over the secondary. The front four for Texas actually was not that bad. They actually played pretty good. Oklahoma didn't have that many rushing yards. But the secondary got tore up by Landry Jones and his receivers. So Oklahoma won 55-17, a big statement win for Oklahoma. Moving on, Georgia Tech and Maryland. Georgia Tech won 21-16. Georgia Tech still undefeated. They're 6-0 for the first time in 15 years, I believe, something like that. But Maryland made it close at the end. They started coming back. Georgia Tech was winning like 21-10 in the fourth quarter, and it came down to the last drive, and Georgia Tech stopped them, so they're still undefeated. The game between Georgia Tech and Clemson is going to be a huge one for the battle for the ACC. Moving on, I just want to talk about this game for a second. Mississippi State and UAB. The reason I'm pointing this game out was because at halftime, UAB was winning 3-0 over Mississippi State, and that is because they were playing at Legion Field, which gets about 6,000 fans a game. It's such a dead stadium. But UAB is probably the worst team in college football this year, but they played, I don't see how, but they played Mississippi State close. I guess it's just because of the dead environment. Mississippi State did not show up whatsoever. But they scored 21 unanswered points in the second half. UAB actually lost to Tulane a few weeks ago, 49-10, so that gives you an idea of how bad UAB is. But Mississippi State ended up winning 21-3. Here's where I eat some crow. South Carolina and Kentucky. In the last video, I predicted Kentucky to actually upset this game, but I guess I didn't realize how bad Kentucky actually was. Quarterback Connor Shaw had a game for South Carolina, had a great game. He's going to be the starter for the rest of the year. Steve Spurrier wouldn't care if Steven Garcia died. I bet you $100 he wouldn't care. But South Carolina won 54-3. After like the first few minutes, I was like, yeah, my prediction might come true because Kentucky was winning 3-0, and they were driving. And then apparently South Carolina scored 54 unanswered points. So I was totally wrong in this game. South Carolina won 54-3. Here's an upset: Wake Forest and Florida State. Wake Forest won 35-30, and it was the game at Florida State, who was 23 in the country at the time. Florida State just has a terrible offensive line. They can't run the ball at all. Their corners keep getting beat game after game. And Wake Forest came back in the fourth quarter and won 35-30 over Florida State. Moving on. Illinois and Indiana. I'm just pointing this game out because Indiana came out to a 10-0 lead over Illinois. But Illinois, they're still undefeated this year. They won 41-20 over Indiana. Next week they have a game against Ohio State, so that's going to improve big factors into if they're a legit team or not. They've had a few close games against lower tier opponents, but they're still undefeated, so who knows what can happen from here. Who knows, they may win the Big Ten. That's a big stretch, but who knows, they're undefeated right now. Next game, Clemson at Boston College. Clemson won 36-14. Still undefeated, national contender this year. Like I said, the Georgia Tech Clemson game is going to be a big game. Whoever wins this game, who knows, might could go to the national championship. It's a possibility. Sorry, I'm going to see when the Georgia Tech game is in 3 weeks, October the 29th, so be looking forward to that. It's going to probably be a primetime game if both teams go undefeated into that game. So that's going to be a big game. But the reason I'm pointing this game out is because Taj Boyd was hurt in the third quarter. He's been a big part of Clemson's success this year. But from what I've heard, it's nothing too serious. It's like an upper knee strain or leg strain, something like that. So it's nothing too serious. He should be back next week. Well, actually, he's questionable, but for the fact that he's not going to be out for 2 weeks or more is good for Clemson Tiger fans. Next week they're playing Maryland, so that shouldn't be too much of a scare. Maryland's a jumpy team. They beat Miami. They almost beat Georgia Tech. They lost to Temple 31-10 or 31-7, something like that. So Maryland's an unpredictable team, so they got to be watching out for them. Moving on, we have LSU at Florida. LSU played Florida. They had Florida couldn't get anything going on offense. The two quarterbacks for them couldn't do anything. LSU kept running the ball, running right over them. LSU with that great defense. What I picture in this game is probably stupid picture, taking this out of perspective, but this has nothing to do with anything but the people who are stats savvy might as well say this. LSU gave up 11 points to Florida at home with Florida's two quarterbacks who are backups who can't really throw that well. They can run more than they can throw. And Alabama gave up 10 points to Florida with their starting quarterback at the Swamp at night. And 7 of the points came in the first 11 seconds of the game, the first possession of the game. So Alabama basically gave up 3 points to Florida. So if you're wondering whose defense is better, I'm a homer saying Alabama's is better, but I'm just pointing that out. Not really putting too much emphasis on that, but I'm just saying, you never know. Next game, we have Virginia Tech and Miami. Virginia Tech was winning like 14-0 at half or something like that, and Miami came roaring back. Lamar Miller, the great running back, had a whale of a game. But Virginia Tech, Miami was actually winning at the end. Virginia Tech scored. Logan Thomas had a great game, had over 300 yards passing, had like 2 touchdowns rushing and a few passing. He had a great game. He's a big guy, converted tight end, and they pulled off the victory, won 38-35. Next game. Just going to play this game out. Oregon State at Arizona. Oregon State had not had a win this game. A win this season. They lost to like Sacramento State or something the first week. But I'm actually glad they got the win. Because I like Mike Riley as a head coach. He's one of the better coaches in college football. I feel sorry for him that his season was going so bad as it was. But they got the first win against Arizona, so who knows how it will go from here, because Arizona's not that bad of a team. So, yeah. Arizona State won 37-27. Moving on, Alabama-Vanderbilt. Alabama had a slow first half, only got 14 points. And Vanderbilt had a lot of missed opportunities. They missed 2 field goals in the first half. So they could have been 14-6 going into halftime, and who knows how it could have gone from there. But they came back roaring in the third quarter with Princeton, had 2 touchdowns rushing, had like 108 yards, and 80 of them came in the third quarter. So Alabama pulled out the victory, no problem, 34-0 over Vanderbilt. Number 10 Arkansas and Auburn, and the game was at Arkansas. Auburn kept it close for the most part, but Tyler Wilson and Arkansas's pass offense was too much for Auburn's poor defense. Auburn's poor secondary and defense as a whole finally came out to bite them in the butt. Their offense couldn't get it done this game. When Auburn's offense can't get it done, that's not going to be good for them because that's usually how they win their games, by outscoring their opponents. That wasn't the case last week against South Carolina, but Marcus Lattimore had a bad game. But I'm not going to go there. But Arkansas did win 38-14, so I'm 2 games away from having to pay my friend $10, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say anything about that, but moving on, we have Michigan and Northwestern. Denard Robinson, he just threw up interceptions the whole game. But when you can run like he can, when you have the running ability like he has, you have the chance to be successful. And Michigan's defense isn't near as bad as it's been in the last few years. And they won 42-24 over Northwestern. They're still undefeated, right now ranked 12th in the country. So they're moving on up there, and who knows what can happen from here. So moving on, Texas A&M 45, Texas Tech 40. I wish Texas Tech would have won because they were undefeated. I like Tommy Tuberville as a head coach, and he's been doing a great job. They were undefeated going into this game, but they almost beat Texas A&M. I wish they would have, but they lost 45-40. Baylor and Iowa State. Baylor won 49-26 over Iowa State. It was kind of close in the first half, but Robert Griffin proved to be one of the better quarterbacks. Well, he's already proven to be one of the better quarterbacks in the country. As he hit the first few games, he had more touchdown passes, or he had, I think it was more touchdown passes than he did incompletions, which is probably the craziest stat I've ever heard of. He's one of the better players in the country. I've known him since he was a freshman. Reminds me a lot of a smaller Vince Young, or a better comparison is a right-handed Michael Vick. So, enough on that. Baylor won 49-26. And here's another game. My prediction's starting to sound a little bit more not as dumb. Houston beat East Carolina 56-3 I think it was at East Carolina too. And East Carolina has a pretty big stadium, and it's pretty loud at night, especially against Houston, who's one of the better teams in the CUSA conference. And I predicted Houston to go to the Sugar Bowl, and maybe finally they'll start getting some recognition. They're still undefeated. They have a win over UCLA. And they've been right outside the top 25, and they haven't been ranked so far. Maybe this one will actually give them some credit. They have Case Keenum like his 28th year at quarterback, so let's have a few more games to go over. Georgia beat Tennessee 20-12. Isaiah Crowell had a great game on the ground. Georgia's defense had a great game. Tyler Bray didn't get that many passes against them, and they won 20-12 over Tennessee. I think that's going to be we'll have one more game to do. Nebraska and Ohio State. This game was at the Horseshoe. Nebraska was losing by a bunch. I think it was the biggest comeback, and I can't remember the score they were actually losing by, but I believe it was the biggest comeback in school history and program history. Taylor Martinez down the stretch, fourth quarter, had a great quarter. Not exactly a great game, but he had a great quarter. And they just came back against Ohio State and won 34-27. Nebraska's probably been one of the biggest upsets in the college football world this season, as Florida State, and there's probably another team I'm forgetting. But they've been a big disappointment, and they would have gone down even lower if they had lost this game. But they came back, so who knows? They can go from there. I guess, guys, that is it. That is 13 minutes of me talking. I hope you watched the whole thing. And I'm going to do a prediction video in a little while, so be looking forward to that. And I will see you guys later. Roll Tide.